Great today to see so many of you here, especially as this is sort of a special demo day because it is sadly the last on-site demo day in this very building where Makers have been for the past, I think, maybe not 8 years, but like a few years at least. So the next demo day will be on the new Makers office where we'll be moving next month.
You're still on mute.
This is the last demo day in this Makers office, so it's a bit of a special one, so thank you for coming in so big numbers tonight. So we're here tonight to showcase the great projects that the July cohort has been working over the past 2 weeks. So first I'm going to say a few words about this cohort, and then each team will go and present what they've been working over the past 2 weeks. So most of you tonight will already know that Makers is a 16-week coding bootcamp. It's an intense learning experience, and over the course of that time here, many developers go from knowing almost nothing about coding, maybe just like basics, to being able to build a full project by using all the techniques, concepts, and skills that they learn on the course. At Makers, we do believe that anyone can learn to code, no matter what their background is, no matter what they've done before. And just a few months ago, the developers that you're about to see tonight were enjoying their first week here, getting to grips with test-driven development, Ruby classes, object-oriented programming. And today they can build and deploy entire projects from scratch to create the products that they like to see and to use in the world. So I'm not going to address the cohort directly when I say this. You should all be extremely proud of what you've all achieved until now. And think about it for a second. You were sitting for the first time in this room on your first day at Makers only 12 weeks ago, and look where you are now. And you can imagine, even if you're not a software engineer yourself, even if you're not technical, how challenging it can get. Every week, for the past 4 months, there are new concepts to learn, to digest and to use into various projects and challenges and exercises. And just once they thought that they had some time to breathe and to just like start knowledge sinking, then there was an avalanche of new concepts and new things to digest, with just like learning again a lot of new things. They learn purely technical things such as test-driven development, object-oriented programming, code review, design, web, databases. They had long and frustrating days battling JavaScript syntax, mocking, asynchronous programming, and all of this nice stuff. But they've also learned a lot of things that actually make the difference when it comes to working in teams, such as teamwork, communication, agile planning, developer process, giving and receiving feedback, reviewing each other's code, listening to each other. And if all of that sounds challenging, it's because it is. Learning all of these things, learning how to become a software engineer in such a short amount of time is not something that comes easily. It's something that takes a whole mindset to do. It forces you to constantly think about your progress, where you are and where you're going, what we call the growth mindset. And it almost forces you to become a new version of yourself, and that takes a lot of work and a lot of courage. So before we start the presentation tonight, I just wanted to fully appreciate that. I appreciate the work and effort that went from the people in this cohort, and the fact that they've already done most of the hard work yet. So well done everyone, so let's give them a first round of applause. Okay, so enough of me talking in my French accent tonight. So the first team to present tonight has worked on something quite fun. So as I said, Makers can be quite intense and challenging, and sometimes you just need a bit of time to unwind and just like chill a little bit. And there's nothing better than a good 2D game to do that. So the first team today worked on a game, and that game is Reef Runner, so I'm going to give them the floor to present their products.
Woo!
Hi everyone, welcome. We're Team Sea Urchins. My name is Naomi.
Stephen.
Ruben, Harry.
And Sophie.
Great, we're going to take you through what we did. We found ourselves at our final project. What a moment to come away from the cohort and be forged into a fellowship to do it together. We wanted to have a nice time, work healthily and sustainably together, and be proud of our code. And then we were on a games team, so making a video game, what a precious and nostalgic thing to have the chance to do. We pulled lots of our influences and favourite games to try and work out what to do. We kind of pulled them into categories and we voted. And everyone's input was very important, and we've without too much trouble, set upon a side scroller. So again, we were like, right, what do we want to do? What do we want it to look like? We'd like it to have funky styling. We want it to be mobile or on computer, because obviously most people are just playing games on the tube these days. It was going to be underwater, and so we pulled some visual references, lots of nostalgic shards of ourselves in there, and the rest that others will tell you about. We used Notion to keep all of our stuff in one place, and then a fairly standard stack of apps.
Here our journey into the unknown began, where we had to do everything from scratch. We began by planning our adventure, sketching how we wanted the game to look, MVPs, user stories, and then we dedicated a day to researching different frameworks, languages and engines, like you can see in the speech bubble there. So half the group for one day looked at JavaScript, HTML, CSS with no framework, and then the other half looked at Unity engine with C#. But we ruled out both options because there wasn't that much coding with Unity and there wasn't a framework with the other choice. Therefore, we decided to use the framework Phaser with JavaScript and HTML and CSS. So our allies were the access to plenty of resources and tutorials and guides about Phaser online. It had its own game physics. There were better performance gains in using a framework rather than not using one. Our initial trial began when we started to create objects. We initially stored them in an array and it made the game really slow. So we then changed that and added them to a group, so populated in a group, so that drastically changed the game performance then. And our first enemy, as everyone might have guessed, was testing. With games, it proves difficult to test. We did try researching loads, we did look at visual comparison testing, but we decided to prioritize on the gameplay and the user experience with the game.
Cool. So then at this point in the journey, unfortunately, the fun of finding and working out what we were going to use was over, and we'd been with Phaser for about a week. And yeah, we were starting to get to grips with like the opportunity of the framework and really like excited about what it could bring, but very quickly we were overrun with bugs and blockers, and it was a bit of a nightmare, but we've managed to work through it. The main things were like, we always wanted this app to be a mobile game app, not a desktop app, because it seems to be where all games seem to be mobile nowadays. So like things like going from the arrow keys to swipe controls was pretty difficult. And then like just other weird little things like being able to share assets with each other and like them not corrupting, things like game physics and like the physics fields, they were really like fragile. And then like even working out like what data types to use for things such as images, like we spent a long time like choosing and weighing up the options between PNGs and SVGs. Turns out SVG is the way to go, a lot quicker. And then like adding in all the objects and like forming on top of each other, it was a bit of a minefield. But then like with all this work, we were definitely at this point in the journey like pretty overwhelmed and just worn out really with the code. And luckily someone in the group, I can't remember who, finally remembered like something called taking breaks, which did it paid dividends in the end and allowed us to get the rest of this project done.
Okay. Right. Okay, so then despite those challenges, we did have a simple playable game at this stage, but the problem is it was going to be difficult to improve it with the current structure because it had all the code in one long file, and it was basically like spaghetti code where if you made any attempt to sort of modify or improve it, it was going to break it. And we were waiting for this point where we knew enough about the game before setting a day aside to decide how to restructure it. And when we did, we discovered that a game like this works quite well with a structure where like the players and obstacles are objects, and it can be structured in quite a modular way. And then this improved architecture does mimic what we'd seen in various things in the course. But interestingly, we hadn't seen a specific example of this with Phaser. But that said, the new structure then allowed us to easily develop the game beyond this, and then the tickets started flying by. It was brilliant.
Thanks, Stephen. So with the tickets out of the way, it was time to show it to our families and friends. This is the first time we kind of discovered that the game works very differently on different devices. So mobile, it was really, really slow, for example. So that meant like we had to do like a last minute change. So on the mobile version right now, the background is actually static instead of moving, but it improved performance quite a bit. And with that out of the way, we realized we had created actually a really fun and nice game that we showed to our friends that we're really proud of. One of the best things as well is that it's deployed for everyone to play. So you can actually play it on your laptop and on your phone. If you want to play it on your laptop, I do recommend using it on Chrome because Firefox has some bugs somehow. And you play it by using the arrow keys on your laptop, and on your phone, you just use your touch. So your thumbs on your phone, and then it can make the player move. And I think it's time for demoing our game.
My smooth tech skills coming into their own now. Excuse me. Leo's going to be so proud. There we are. My fingers are too small, apparently.
So a few different features. The fish is not swimming, but if it hits a bubble, it automatically goes up. Even if you don't press any keys, it will like go up a little bit. And we have something as well where we have if you hit against worms, then it will go down. So it does something separately or opposite to the bubbles. And if you both hit the bubbles or the kind of worms, it increases your score by 1,000. So it's good things to hit.
Watch out for the ships.
Watch out for the ships and the obstacles because they will drag you. This is Octopus Steven, and it makes you go really, really fast. And of course, you need to watch out for sharks because yeah, like I mentioned, the ships and the rocks, they will just push out of the way. And if you hit the left side of the screen, you'll die. But if you get it past 5,000, you will go faster. And also the music speeds up. So
The high score is currently 24,000. So have the answers on the postcard.
Are there any questions for this team from the audience? One from Ami.
I noticed that you've got parallax scrolling, which was very impressive. Was that supported directly by the game engine, or did you have to do some coding for that?
You mean the layers? Yeah.
The layers.
Oh, the layers. So I created some layers in like Illustrator separately, and they didn't have like the background. So then in Phaser you can do like a towel sprite, I think it's called, and then they will just keep moving. And I did them in such a way that the left side of the layers is the same as the right side, so you wouldn't see like a line or anything. So that's why it seems like it's actually scrolling.
And we chose the relative speeds to give a nice sense of perspective between the layers.
Cool, thanks. Looks awesome.
Thanks. And there was a second question, I think, around that. Yes.
How long time you spending to create that game?
2
weeks.
weeks.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, probably less than 2 weeks. We spent like a good 3-4 days-ish, or doing like an information spike and just like learning, like and seeing what the options were. So more like nigh on 8 days, I'd say.
Thank you.
Thanks. And there's one last question.
Who has the high score?
Yeah.
Apparently my incredibly competitive cousin. If you get far enough, you unlock a second Drexia tune, so that's when you know you're doing well, when you get new music.
Okay, and one last one.
How do you download the game currently? Is there a way to access it for us?
Yeah.
QR code.
QR code.
Yeah. So it's a website already, so you can go on your phone or
It's reefrunner.herokuapp.com.
Is it slash? I think it's hyphen. Is it hyphen?
I don't think.
Oh no,
Yeah.
sorry.
Thanks. I think we're gonna stay there for the questions, just being conscious of time, but the team will be around later after the presentation, so if you want to ask them more questions, I'm sure they'll be happy to answer this at that time.
Thank you.
Bye. you do like food like me, and if you do like going out like me, you probably like eating out in restaurants with friends. And one of the most annoying thing when it comes to eating out at a restaurant with people is how do you split the bill, and it's quite a headache that honestly I really want to do at the time. So the second team to present tonight thought about this and decided to do something really useful that I'm definitely going to use in a bit. So Team Divi, it's you to present now.
Evening everyone, my name is David. I'm one of the developers for Project Divi alongside Zach, Nesham, Ladan and Alan, who's joining us online by Zoom. So before we go into what is Divi, I think it's important to discuss the why. So I don't know about you, but we all love food. So I want you all to picture the scene. It's Friday, finished work, or it's the weekend, and you've booked reservations to go to your favorite low-key spot or restaurant with your day one friends from childhood. Typically, when there's a lot of you, it can be quite a cumbersome process when it comes to splitting the bill. That's where Divi comes into play. So Divi is a mobile app that enables you to easily first take a photo of the receipt. It then turns that physical receipt and itemizes it into a digital receipt. It then enables you to add users, so your friends that attended to each of the meals that were logged on the receipt. Then from there, the final screen, it then shows you a breakdown of the total costs and also who ordered what. So you know what was ordered, who ordered what, and also even if there were additional charges, like you had a great waiter, you can tip them, you happen to have a discount, apply a discount, even add a service charge. And it's all, the maths has all been calculated for you. Simply put, divide and conquer. I will now pass over to Zach, who will run you through the demos.
Hey everyone. First part of the demo is loading the correct video. So this is a run through of how the app works. So we are a user who wants to create a new meal. So what we want to do, we get the option to take a photo of receipt to upload from our library. We have one already in our library. Here's it processing, and here's it processed. You can see all items on the left and prices on the right. Really clear and easy to understand. We can add an item if it's missing, give it a name, give it an amount, and that'll be added to our list below. We can then add our users. Who are we sharing the meal with? Well, there's me. There's David. What else we got? Ladan. And Nisho. And we can also, we're going to name the meal. So this is so later on, we can access it from a saved meals function. We can say, okay, this is the greasy spoon meal. Here we begin giving the items to people. So let's say they had soups. Now here we have a function where you can share meals. So several people had the lasagna and those costs we worked out split between the two people. We now go to the total screen. And here we can see everything's itemized. Subtotals and totals are worked out. Everyone has prices and names. Here we're adding service charge. So then this is worked out. And here we're going to add just a tenner. We really enjoyed the meal and added tip, £15 rather. And everything is worked out. Pause that for a second. You can see all the prices are worked out below, all their names. It says who's had what meals, how it's shared, and all the costs are above. Wanted to make it really easy and quick to understand, just show people, maybe they aren't that tech savvy, just something that's very concise. And here, let's say you used this app a couple of days ago, you want to see what everyone spent, here you can access it as a save meals function. So that's the meal we just had a look at. And that is a run through. Something we're incredibly proud of is getting this to run on an app, which we have a video of here. Bear with me. So this is it deployed to an iPhone. We see some of the items on the right: soup, lasagna, mixed food, 2 times chips. It's having a think, sending that information to our online API. And here we have it itemized. Yeah, we're very proud of getting that to work. And yeah, that is it running on an app. I'm going to hand it over to Alan, who's offsite, who's going to talk a bit more about how we got that to work.
Okay, thank you, Zach. So,
okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I do apologize. I'm actually going to talk about the tech stack quickly. We have practiced this, I promise. We knew we wanted to deploy to mobile, and we'd worked with JavaScript a lot before in the course. Our last few weeks were all JavaScript. And we knew a couple of groups in the final course had, the final group project rather, had used React. This is something we really wanted to get to grips with. And React Native, you can use React, some of the components of React and some of the bits you use to build normal websites, to build an app and deploy it to mobile. So that's why we chose React Native. We used Expo, which is a way of deploying it to phones. So in a lot of cases, you can just scan a QR code and immediately just have it on your phone. It's a really quick and easy way to have things deployed. We use Realm is our database structure, which is a way of having an offline database without needing an access to a server. So it just lives on the phone. One other thing was because it's going to be used on a mobile that might not have access to the internet, we wanted something offline. However, when you do have access, we use an online API called Taggin, which is our way of reading receipts and processing that into information, into data. We're now going to go over to Alan, who's going to talk about how we do that. Thank you, Alan.
thank you, Zach. So one of the core features of our app is to be able to take a picture of the receipt and recognizing the information on it. So it was a challenge trying to figure out how to write code that will access the camera on the phone to take a picture, and also integrating Taggin with our code base so we can get the information on the receipt back from it and present them on the screen in a user-friendly and interactive format. So we managed to solve the problem in the end. Next slide. Yeah, so the user will be able to take a picture of the receipt, and that receipt will be sent to Taggin, and Taggin will return the information on the receipt back to the app. The information will be processed and stored onto the Realm database in the phone. React Native is then able to access the database and display it onto the app. And why do we choose Taggin? Well, we considered other competitors, but it costs around £500 a month to use, and we get 30 days free trial of Taggin. So we thought, why not? I'll pass it back over to Zach.
So a bit more about our tech cycle, basically. This is also, we'd never used any of this before we started about 2 weeks ago. We'd used JavaScript, we'd never used React, we'd never used Realm, Expo, Taggin, none of it. But as we got further into developing the idea, we realized these are technologies we need to use. Our process would be, we would make it work. We got React Native on a phone. That's great. We had a new feature, we added Realm. Now it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Okay, now it works. Now we add Taggin. Now it doesn't work again. And this process continued over the first week. We call it the cycle of learning. David has helpfully titled it Integration Oblivion. Because we're getting it, there's so much stuff going on, getting it to work on different computers with a hassle. Unfortunately, in some cases, it just never gets there in the end. Nisha is going to talk about that as a blocker, something we came across during this. Thank you.
Yeah, it's first time we did the React Native afterwards and pop in an Expo, and then when adding the area, it starts the program's crashing. They cannot run the simulation, so it has a problem with the Xcode and then some setups and stuff. And I am still cannot running the program. So then the other guys is running, but my one doesn't run. So I don't understand. So then that's just like a challenging point us for the building of the app. But there's a good point. Ladan, she's gonna go.
Following what just Nisha mentioned, the positive side has always worked for me, and it made the life easier to set up projects. We could see we set up the project through Expo, and we could see instant changes. So we write the code and we see it on our simulator on our phone, and it just got changed quickly. And the other positive side of using Expo was we didn't have to go through learning the mobile development, because Expo, it works fine in both side iOS and Android. So we decided to use the React Native for front ends, and the journey just started for, I guess, all of us, and it will continue. Now I'm going to pass it to David.
So V2, if we had more time or we were planning to release a version 2, one feature we considered that we would add quite swiftly next is the ability to simply share the saved breakdown of the itemized receipt to messaging platforms such as WhatsApp or iMessage. In the case, one of your the people who attended wanted it for reference in like a simple string format. So overall, it was a great learning experience. We learned a lot as a team, from the front end to the back end and even project management, and developing an idea, taking it from ideation to MVP. And I think for myself and all of us, yeah, we want to thank you for tuning in and watching.
Is there any question from the audience for this team? There's one here.
Yeah, so I've got a question. So obviously, is the app quite strict on the font you can read the receipt? So some restaurants, they handwrite the receipt, or they use different fonts, and it's kind of weird. Is it like, is it strict with the formatting it reads and takes in the data?
It just works with it, so it doesn't work with handwritten receipts. I think that would require a different kind of image recognition. This just reads, most receipts are printed in this very same format, so it doesn't seem, from what we've tested, it doesn't seem to care. It just reads the items. The way we get it back is an object. We get back an object with data in it. It tells us, okay, it tells us like. It even tells us where the receipt, where the restaurant is located. Like, it really breaks it down quite nicely. But for us, it gives us all the items with their price, with the name of the item. Yeah, to answer your question, no, it doesn't seem to care at all.
And just going off of that point, in that edge case, we have a feature initially where you can enter it in manually. So in the case where you've handwritten it, you can't take a photo, you can enter it in, each item manually, and Divi will do the math for you essentially. Just add the users to each item, then you click totals, now you've got the breakdown, and we've done the math for you.
Thank you.
Next, we have another question. Yes?
So using this API must have been hard, attempting image recognition stuff. Like, just how hard was it? Like, what were the steps in trying to use it, integrate it? What was the learning curve like?
Alan, do you want to talk about, did you hear the question?
No, I didn't catch that, sorry.
The question was about what was the learning curve like with integrations? It was specifically about the API.
I would say it's a lot of trial and error, because initially we were going to send the image to Kaggle API as an image format, but I realized that because we use a React Native library that when we take a picture, it converts it to a base64 encoded image, which is like thousands of characters, and send it to the database, send it to the API. And then we couldn't figure out how to do that. And then we found out that the target API actually accepts base64 encoded format, but as another extension. So it was a lot of trial and error just trying to get it to integrate.
Thanks. So I'm sure there'll be loads of questions for this team, but again, being conscious of time, we're going to go over to the third team who's presenting tonight. And if you have any questions for them, you can meet them afterwards to discuss them. Thank you again, team. So the third and last team to present tonight work on something really interesting, and before they present, it's just a good opportunity to say that tech is also, working in tech is also a great opportunity to work on kind of like causes, like social causes or big problems that are very much present today, such as like climate change. And I think this project is a great example of how you can use tech as a tool to hopefully make the world a bit better place. I know that sounds cheesy, but hopefully this is what tech can be used as well. So without saying any more words, I'm going to let the Travel Light team present what they've been working on.
Saeed, can you hear us? Yeah, I can hear you. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Take it away. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm Saeed, and thank you for joining us all. We are Team Travel Light. Travel Light is essentially a travel/adventure app whose aim is firstly to show the user the route of their journey on a map. Then using a carbon calculator, it shows you the amount of CO2 emitted or saved for that journey. And it does that by comparing the airplane journey as well as the train travel journey to a user's destination. And lastly, it recommends the user to do something adventurous along the way that you wouldn't necessarily do if you were to take a plane from airport to airport. So in a nutshell, Travel Light promotes airplane alternative travel, which is obviously eco-friendly. And to make the experience more immersive, it recommends adventures along the way. Travel Light is a group of 5 members. The 4 other members are Alex, Curtis, Brijesh, and Evelina. And they'll be speaking more about the process, the tech stacks we used, as well as the challenges we encountered, a lot of challenges we encountered along the way to create this app, as well as any future additions of potential additions that we might have or updates we might have in the app. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Curtis to shed some more light on Travel Light.
Hey, yeah, a little bit more about it. The goal of the website essentially is to kind of you might have somewhere you want to go, and essentially previously you just think, well, I'll just get a plane, and so the goal of this app is you put in your destination, and essentially it spits out the route and the different stops along the way, and then gives you something to do at the stop. So immediately you're able to compare the carbon, compare the kind of different adventures you can have, and so yeah, hopefully you would then be inspired to take the train instead. I'm going to
yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna walk you through our website. So as you can see, you can, as a user, like if you're conscious of carbon emission, you can use our website, input like the destination you want to go. And on this page, you will basically see a first comparison of carbon emissions and distance, so between plane and train. And you're gonna also be able to see like each of the stops on the journey, and to click on the calculate to see like the overall amount of carbon emission that you're saving. And this is our sources page where we basically taking the data out to calculate the amount you saved. But yeah, as I was saying, to go back to this page, basically you are also able to have some ideas on what to do for each of the stops in your journey. And yeah, if you don't like our suggestions, you can click try another idea and basically have another one and see yeah, if there is anything that could be interesting for you. And then, yeah, if you find something that you like and you want to find out more, you can click on the button there and be redirected to TripAdvisor, where you can learn a little bit more about the location. And you can also, lastly, email yourself this adventure, and yeah, basically having all the details that you just decided to do. Yeah. And yeah, that's our website basically. Then if you, yeah, this is the email that is coming to your inbox from our Travel Lights team. And yeah, if you want to check for another journey for a different destination, you can, yeah, go on and input a different city. And again, you will see the different amount of carbon emissions, distance, and all the details that I just explained. I'm gonna yeah, leave it to Bridges to continue explaining our website and how it works. Yeah, cool.
Thanks, Evelyn. I hope everyone enjoyed our little demo. So I'm just going to talk about our processes and what we used. So at the start of the project, we decided to create a team charter, just outlining our objectives and our goals throughout the 2 weeks. And we decided to use Excalibur and Figma for our design. So we created an MVP at the start in our first sprint. And we use Figma. The first time we used Figma just for more of like a detailed design of what we want our website to look like. And we used an agile development process. So we followed Trello to allocate tickets to each other. And essentially all our communication was through Slack as well. So yeah, at the end of each sprint, we had a retro. So we decided on a 3-day sprint. We did stick to that, but we did encounter a few issues, so we had to kind of revisit at times. But essentially, when we started our plan, we decided on a 3-day sprint and then a retro to just discuss how things went at the end. So just speaking about our tech stack, we did a bit of research on what we should use. We decided to use React because I think at the moment it is the most in-demand technology for front end. Our app is pretty much front end at the moment. We used it in a Node environment, and we use Cypress for testing. We also decided for design, instead of just using CSS, we decided to use a framework. So Tailwind in this case. And we also used a few APIs, which we found a little tricky to get around, and I'm sure Curtis will tell you more about. But yeah, I'll pass it on to Curtis now.
Yeah, so just a quick couple of basically similar to the other groups, essentially very little understanding of React and APIs at the beginning of the 2 weeks. So that was a massive learning curve. There was another, so it was a big amount of information, and essentially the APIs have specific limitations. So for instance, Google, when they give you a location, the location comes with encrypted latitudes and longitudes. And obviously for our app, latitudes and longitudes are incredibly important. So every time we're using a place, we have to then put it back, we have to feed it back into Google, and for it to spit out a latitude and longitude, which we can then tell where the place is. Another thing we ran into was essentially some of the APIs we were using. So for instance, the places nearby the stops we stop at, we're using this API called Travel Advisor, and it has very little documentation. It's hard to know exactly what requirements they have, and so we were finding a lot of issues where we were in testing. We were trying to request all the stops at once, and basically they were saying you've gone over your amount of calls you can make and getting blocked. So yeah, obviously that's one of the things about APIs. Yeah, the other thing we were encountering was obviously because it was very unknown as to what we were able to do in React, and also the kinds of information we were actually going to end up with once we've worked out how to connect things together. It meant that the test driving method was very, very difficult, and in the end we ended up just having a couple of kind of end-to-end tests where we were checking whether things were existing or not. on the page. But yeah, leading to Alex with future improvements.
Yeah, so as we said, our app is a front-end app. When we were in the planning stages, we did talk about having a back end so that users would actually be able to have a profile, be able to save their trips, save the attractions that they're going to. And that would also lead into a kind of social aspect of the app where they could forward their trip to friends and also just suggest their own trip ideas. At the moment, our app only compares train and flight. Ideally, we would also like to have it compare with the car route as well, so that eco-conscious travellers can opt for that as a travelling method. And we also thought a cool thing to add on would be to have a booking system, so we would directly, to allow users to directly book onto trips and attractions suggested by TripAdvisor, and also to actually book their train routes as well, all through our app. And yeah, that is everything.
Do we have any questions for this team?
I was going to ask one.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I already asked a question beforehand. But is there a limit to the distance you can travel? We say if you're going to Sydney, obviously it's covered with water, or like if you're going past a war-torn country, Ukraine. So is there like any difficulty, with politics and like geological positioning?
Yeah, there is a limit. Essentially, because we're because the information we're requesting from Google, they don't allow you to, for instance, calculate some insane route from all the way from London to like the end of, like to Beijing or whatever. That would be an insane amount of calculations. So there is a limit. We can go, all the way into Russia and things. I'm sure that the train would probably route me through Ukraine, to be honest, but that's a decision you can make, I guess. But no, like it's there is a limit, obviously, if you wanted to go, for instance, at the moment it's just train. So if you want to go to New York from London, obviously that it will say essentially on come up with a thing saying we could not find a route, so we're going to reroute you, try a different route.
Thanks. And we have another question here.
Yeah, so firstly, good job on you, Joey. You mentioned something about adding a backend, so I guess that meant like layer of assistance, right? So do you guys think of what kind of, let's say, database options you have in terms of saving trips?
I mean, it was more whispers in the initial planning stage. I think React was just a lot to learn, and the APIs as well, that we didn't really get to that stage of thinking about what a database would look like, what kind of database sets we would use.
Initially we wanted to implement MERN and just do monitoring, but it got to a point where we took about a week trying to understand React. So we had about a week to develop, and then we just feature block.
Yeah. And one last question from me.
I suppose that would be why did you guys use any other test frameworks other than Cypress, or was it just some end-to-end testing with Cypress?
Yeah, that's it. Thanks. Once again, if you have more questions, as I'm sure you will do. Okay, one last one.
Just curious to know, what made you choose Tailwind, and how was the experience for you?
We actually, so during the initial planning phase, we were discussing new technologies and what frameworks and what we wanted to use. We decided on Tailwind because I previously had experience just building projects, and I thought if we can implement this and learn something on the way, it would be beneficial. The experience was quite good, actually. Everyone picked it up really quickly, and we were able to develop things very quickly, so we didn't have to worry about the design aspect. But yeah, overall it's pretty good.
Cool, thanks. Well, thank you, Tim. Again, well done. Thanks to all the teams who presented tonight, and as a side said, thank you to the audience. Over the past years, we've probably seen hundreds of students coming through that door, in that room, graduating, presenting their projects, and going away to be hired as junior software engineers, freshly going into the world of tech. Today, these people might be senior engineers, managers, lead, technical directors, maybe some of them even created their own companies. And as I said earlier, makers will be moving to a new office soon. So we won't use that same room again, but hopefully in the new makers office, there will be another room where people will graduate in their turn to become software engineers. And I know that we have prospective students curious about makers today in the room. So you might be impressed by this project and you might be thinking, this is too hard, I will never be able to do that in 3 months. But trust me, if these people and other people were able to do it, you'll be able to do it as well. So I really encourage you to kind of try it and learn more about the course, and hopefully this project make you want even more to join as well. Thanks to the July Cohort for tonight. It's been great to see you learn and grow, not only as individuals, but as a cohort. I hope you'll stay in touch, and I hope we'll stay in touch as well, because Makers is not only a school, it's also a community, and as we often say, once a Makers, always a Makers. Thanks to everyone who went to see the project tonight. I will invite you to stay around, to ask the team, discuss with the staff, socialize, get drinks, pizzas. I'm going to ask you to maybe back a bit in the room so we remove the chairs and we have a bit of space to socialize. Yeah, enjoy your evening. Thanks.